Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I am so glad you're here as always. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're talking about the Benchmade Mini Bugout Model 533. I've got two of them here. This is not how they come. We'll talk about how they got to look the way they look. But we're going to talk about this knife, do kind of an overview, give you my thoughts on it, and compare it a little bit to the full-size Bugout. And yeah, that'll be it. So let me start by saying this. I am a huge fan, you might even say fanatic, when it comes to the Benchmade Bugout. The standard, full-size Benchmade Bugout. Doesn't matter which variation it is. You know, I'm a huge fan. That's an understatement. I have many Benchmade Bugouts. I have more of these than I'm comfortable even telling you that I have, because it would be embarrassing to me. I love the Benchmade Bugout. One of my favorite knives, period. The Mini Bugout, I bought two, and they're the only two that I'm going to buy. I'm not going to buy another Mini Bugout. Doesn't matter what variation they come in, what handle materials they come out with in the future, exclusives. Doesn't matter. I'm good with the two I have, and I'm not going to buy any more. That's where I've landed on the Mini Bugout. And the reason for that is simply that it's, you know, the size, and I'm not going to sink more money into the minis. It's as simple as that. But it's still a good knife. It's very much functional, but it is smaller than you think it is. It is smaller than you think it is. I'll say it one more time. This knife is smaller than you think it is. And so what I mean by that is if you purchase a Mini Bugout, and if you have one, put in the comments, let me know if you experienced this. You take it out of the box, you open it, and you go, that is smaller than I thought it would be. Even though you knew the dimensions, right? You saw the dimensions online, you knew the overall length, the blade length. When you get it in your hand, it still felt smaller than you thought it would be. That is true. Very, very true. So take the dimensions, draw it on a piece of cardboard, and cut it out. So you've got a silhouette of a Mini Bugout in cardboard. Put it in your hand, feel the size, be like, okay, that's the Mini Bugout. Then when you buy one and it comes to your door and you take it out of the box, you're still going to say it's smaller than you thought it was. It's some physics, science, I don't know what it is, but they're just smaller than you think they are. And so let's start with that. Let's start with specs. The blade length on these guys is 2.82 inches. The overall length is 6.5 inches. It's got a blade thickness of 0.9 inches. When this guy is closed up, the closed length is 3.7 inches. It weighs just 1.5 ounces, and it has a handle thickness of 0.4 inches. So not too dissimilar in thickness from a standard Bugout. It is thinner, but not substantially. Same thing with the blade stock. So there's your dimensions: 6.5 inches overall, 3.7 inches closed, and a 2.8 inch blade length. How much do these cost? They cost, this version, which was orange to begin with, costs about 120 bucks. The other version, which is white and black, goes for like 135. So I think the price is one area where I have a bit of an issue. When you have a miniature version of something, for me, it just needs to be cheaper. And that's not the case with the Mini Bugout. It's the same price as the full size, right? So a full size Bugout with a satin blade is $119. A Mini Bugout with a satin blade, also $119. The same can be said for the other versions, right? The gray bladed Ranger Green Bugout, $135, $136, and the white and black bladed Bugout, same thing, $135, $136. So I think it should be cheaper. I just do. But it is still functional. It is still very much a functional EDC knife, whether it's your primary blade, your backup blade, your fifth pocket blade, your backup to your backup, your primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever your use is, it works just fine. It works like a Bugout. It cuts well. It slices well. It looks nice. I get a full 3-finger grip on it, and it feels plenty comfortable. There's no hot spots to speak of. Very much a usable knife. I feel like it's kind of on that border of being almost too small and almost like a novelty. Like, hey, look at this funny, tiny Bugout we made. We weren't really being serious. But it's still large enough and functional enough that it lands on the side of the line for me of practicality. So it totally works for me. So let's do a quick size comparison with the full-size Bugout. Then we will compare it to some other small knives. So here's the full-size Bugout, and you're going to notice a difference of about 1 inch. That's it, about 1 inch. And that kind of blows my mind because I think sometimes dimensions can be misleading or confusing, or we just don't really think about it. If we line up the thumb studs here, you've got like a 1/2 inch more on the handle and about a 1/2 inch more on the blade. That's it, 1 inch. But this is a very much full-size knife, and this thing's freaking tiny. And it's just 1 inch difference, which I just think, again, science, I don't know. But it is what it is. So let's bring in a couple other smaller knives just for comparison's sake. Here's a Spyderco Dragonfly 2, one of my favorite knives of all time. I do like small knives, so I'm not knocking the Bugout because it's small. It's just smaller than I thought it would be, that's all. So larger, obviously, than the Dragonfly 2. Let's bring in another Spyderco, and this one's a pretty good size comparison. This is the Chaparral, and they are very, very close in overall length. Very, very close. You're going to get much more cutting edge on the Bugout, but this feels so much bigger to me in my hand. When I hold this, it just feels like a bigger knife, but it's the same overall length. Again, science. Who knows? Nobody even understands it. Here's another mini Benchmade, the Mini Grip Tillion. This one does not have factory scales on it, but it'll still give us an idea of how much bigger the Mini Grip Tillion is than the Mini Bugout. This one does have aftermarket scales. And if you're new to the channel and didn't see the video, I tested these scales by hammering nails with them, and so they're a little beat up from being used literally as a hammer to hammer nails, but it still functions like a champion. So that's the Mini Grip Tillion for size comparison. One more mini Benchmade will bring in the Mini Freak, and there's the size comparison there. So these two are very similar, right? The Mini Grip and the Mini Freak. The Mini Bugout is definitely the miniest of the minis. So there's that. I would argue that the best mini that Benchmade makes is the Mini Freak, under the condition that it has aftermarket scales, because I do not like the factory scales. But with aftermarket scales, this knife is unbelievable. But that'll be a different video. So there's your size comparisons. And yeah, it's a good knife. There's nothing wrong with it. I certainly would recommend it if you're into smaller knives or you have legality concerns with blade length. It is very much a serviceable EDC blade. No question about it. I would have no hesitation to carry this as a primary EDC or, again, secondary, tertiary, whatevs. So how did they get to look like the way they look? Because these were both orange to begin with. The handle scales were orange. The thumb studs were orange, and the barrel spacers were orange. There was just a lot of orange happening. And I don't dislike orange in general. I do have a number of knives and tools that are orange in color, but the orange thumb studs and the barrel spacers didn't even come close to matching the orange handle scales, not even a little. Like, it was really far off, and it drove me crazy. And so it was just a lot of orange, and I didn't like the way it looked. And so when I bought these, I knew when I bought them that I was going to do exactly what I did. Like, that was premeditated. And so I disassembled the knives, and the first thing I did is I took the barrel spacers out, and I took a propane torch and basically just melted away the orange coating. And what it left me with is almost like a, if we can get it to focus here, it almost looks like raw titanium. It's just like silver, like a dark silver color. And I think it looks really nice, actually. They turned out pretty well. So there is your barrel spacers that are no longer orange, so that made me happy. Next, I had to address the handle scales, so I dyed them using RIT dye. I used black on this guy right here, as you can clearly see, and red on this one, as you can clearly see. For the red, the color I use is called Racing Red from RIT dye, and I diluted it more than I typically would when I dye handle scales because I didn't want it to turn to like a dark burgundy. I wanted it to be like a vibrant cherry red or fire engine red, and I got pretty close to what I was going for. I think it turned out pretty nice, and so yeah, So no more orange. We got the barrel spacers taken care of. Got the handles dyed. Then we had to address the thumb studs, those awful orange thumb studs. So I took them off and put different ones on. Simple as that. So for this guy, I took a spare blue thumb stud. Thought that was a good contrast, gave it a little bit of color. So I like how that turned out. Looks good. Kind of similar theme to this one here. And on this one, I thought, you know, just with all the black hardware, I didn't want to do a color, like a colorful thumb stud, like a gold, for example. I tried it, didn't really love it, but I had a spare black thumb stud, and I put that on there, and it matches all the hardware, and I think it looks good, if you ask me. The black and the red theme, which is a theme that I'm a fan of, as you can see. So yeah, and I just had a spare black thumb stud from one of these guys lying around. And if you don't have spare thumb studs, you can always call Benchmade, and if they won't send you one for free, you can buy them for $5. $5 will get you a set of thumb studs in whatever color you want. Same thing with pocket clips, $5 a piece, whichever finish you prefer. So you can totally do that. You can totally make your mini bug outs look like this if you want to. I will say with orange specifically, you really only have two options when you're going to dye handle scales that are orange. Just based on my experience, is that's to either go black or red. Obviously, if you used other colors, it would just kind of turn into a different color altogether. But red goes on top of orange pretty well. Sometimes it can turn out to be a really dark burgundy, depending on how much you dilute it. Black obviously will take to pretty much any color. So if you're going to dye anything that's orange, these are the two colors that I would personally recommend using, either red or black. But that's it. That's the Benchmade Mini Bug Out. And I'll add that the fit and finish on these were superb when I got them, and remained so after I reassembled them. The centering is good. They just, the action is just crazy, stupid, wiggly smooth. So yeah, I was pretty happy. You can even kind of, if you try hard enough, Spidey flick these guys. So that's it. Mini bug out from Benchmade. I'm a fan. I will not be buying any more of them or buying any aftermarket parts, but I am glad to have a couple in the collection that I've kind of customized a little bit. So there it is. If you like small knives and you cannot lie, or you're just a big fan of Benchmade or the bug out in general, maybe worth checking out. So thanks again for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.